Gen Z is a hopeless generation. From our views on the future, to our enjoyment of day-to-day life, to our perceptions of ourselves and the role we play in society. Just the other day, a poll by the Walton Foundation showed that just over 60% of Gen Z exhibited symptoms of anxiety. 42% of Gen Z showed symptoms of depression, and 18% of respondents even went so far as to say that they felt like the world would be better off without them in it, or they felt like they would be better off dead. A lot of our generation has just given up. Many of us quietly retreating from society and escapism and addiction, and just distracting ourselves from our problems and our fears by indulging in food, video games, drugs, whatever we have to numb the anxiety we're all feeling towards our futures. And now a lot of people might just say that we're soft or spoiled, say that things aren't as bad as some people think, that the problems we're faced with today are nothing compared to what people in the past had to deal with. But I think that's a bit dismissive. I think that mentality overlooks the varied causes and contributors to the sense of meaninglessness for Gen Z, and I think when we give in to black and white thinking like that, we do a disservice to ourselves and the people it's affecting. You see, I think that the problems Gen Z is facing today are often more nuanced and less existential than for previous generations. As Tyler Durden says famously in Fight Club, we're an entire generation pumping gas, waiting tables, slaves with white collars. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
We're the middle children of history, man. No purpose or place. We have no Great War, no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. Our Great Depression is our lives.
Many times through our history, it's been proven just how resilient and capable humans can be, how much suffering we can power through, how much adversity we can overcome. As Tyler Durden says in Fight Club, we have no Great War or Great Depression to contend with. We suffer spiritually because we've lost our sense of purpose, the thing which is supposed to push us forward through hardships and make our suffering worthwhile. And so because of this, when faced with the uniqueness of the modern world and modern problems, and examining our futures in such a fast-paced, volatile world, I think a lot of us end up feeling overwhelmed. We quietly distance ourselves from our problems and live a sort of half-life inwardly, just indulging in those few pleasures which seem to make life a little more worth it. As psychologist and philosopher Viktor Frankl once said famously, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. For Gen Z, having been the first generation to grow up alongside the internet, each of us has been a guinea pig for this rapid modernization our world has undergone these last few decades. And along with all the good these advancements have brought, I think there's definitely also been some unintentional consequences. I made a video on this channel entitled, Why Modern Life Feels Meaningless, and in that video I discussed 5 major reasons for this crisis of purpose we're encountering in the world today. For a second here, I'd like to just restate some of the conclusions I came to, because I think that to understand why so much of Gen Z is giving up, you need to first understand some of the problems we're facing, and why so many of us lack the purpose to continue fighting. The first point I brought up had to do with social media and technology, where I discussed the ways that overstimulation and unnatural exposure to the outside world has created problems for young people and contributed to a sense of anxiety. The second point I brought up was the problems with modern dating and over-sexualization nowadays, and how things like dating apps and hookup culture make it harder for people to connect and feel seen on a meaningful level. The third point I mentioned was the degradation of societal values, where I argued that because our culture was beginning to prioritize the wrong things and focus less on instilling positive values, that a lot of young people today have become lost, without a community to encourage and help them find their way. The fourth point had to do with escapism and addiction, how a lot of us have chosen to cope with our anxieties and hopelessness by indulging in different forms of pleasure and escape, playing games, distracting ourselves, and just running away from our lives and our problems. The final point I brought up was how alone a lot of us feel in creating and following a direction for ourselves. Like, because there isn't enough education and encouragement for young people in general, a lot of us end up feeling lost and directionless, having never developed enough as people to answer the big questions, understand what we want and how we should be spending our time trying to get where we'd like to be. You see, the thing is, for someone who grew up alongside the internet, an adolescent in the world today, there's a lot more exposure to the problems of the world. It isn't necessarily that things are like that much worse than they've always been. I think it's just that these younger generations are so much more aware of it than previous ones have been. For myself personally, I sometimes get caught up in thinking about the future pessimistically. Whether it's the national debt, or the economy, or advances in AI, I tend to have this perspective like things are going to get really bad soon. Like there's a massive collapse right on the corner, and my window of opportunity to succeed or do what I'm trying to do in life is going to close. Some part of me genuinely, logically believes that. And I'm not a seer, I can't predict the future, I don't actually know what's going to happen. All of these fears and doubts and projections about the future circumstance of the world beyond my control are unproductive. They've often led me into feeling hopeless, like no matter how hard I try, I'll meet failure, or the negative momentum of the world is heading a certain way, and it can't be reversed, and it won't be, so why should I try at all? This at times in the past has led me to escapism, where I'd given up on myself and my future out of hopelessness and anxiety, and I spend my time just distracting myself from it and helping the days pass by more quickly as I played Skyrim or Minecraft and ran away from my problems and my dreams and my responsibilities. This is like a quiet quitting, where millions of young men and women on some level are becoming detached from the outcomes of their lives, just giving up on the idea of the future and living purely for instant gratification or enjoyment in the present. Any action they're willing to take is usually just to avoid discomfort or suffering in the short term. They work because they have to. They put everything important off forever and avoid doing anything they don't have to. From a global perspective, there's a really good example of this same thing happening in the extremes. In Japan, there are estimated to be around 3 million hikikomoris, which now is becoming a relatively significant percentage of their population. If you look it up, the term hikikomori refers to a severe social withdrawal, where a person becomes physically isolated in their home for at least 6 months, refraining from attending school, work, or social activities. It's characterized by significant social isolation, a feeling of detachment from society, and functional impairment, though not necessarily by an underlying psychological disorder. Now, this might be a new concept for a lot of you, but in Japan there's a very widely recognized trend. Among the younger demographics, and especially young men, there are literally millions of young Japanese citizens who refuse to leave their homes. They shut themselves inside, get deliveries for their food, work online or survive off of government subsidies, and spend the majority of their time online. A lot of people might dismiss this idea, say that people are too soft, that just giving up on your future and running away from your problems like that is immature. But the reality is that across the world today, millions of young people feel unseen and misunderstood and disillusioned with the state of the world. However we might feel on a personal level about this phenomenon, the reality is that a lot of Gen Z is giving up, whether it's in a very dramatic sense like with hikikomoris, or in a more general motivational sense like we're seeing here in the West. Across the world, and among Gen Z as a general demographic, I think nearly all of us are feeling some amount of frustration for the state of things. Although the advancements in modern technology have done a lot of good for the world at large, I think we're seeing today in the younger generations some of the unintentional consequence of that. And paired with these new problems that weigh uniquely on a young person's mind today is the worldwide trend of increasing inequality, where the wealth divide, even just since COVID, has continued to grow larger as the middle class shrinks and as the cost of living becomes so extreme that many young people today are simply priced out of their own economy and forced to live with their parents, or leave their country and become a digital nomad, or scrape by off of the debt they continue amassing as they do what they have to survive. All of Gen Z, everyone my age I know, is just wondering how they'll ever be able to afford a home, wondering how they'll be able to have kids and raise a family, wondering when our national debt will hit critical mass and our economy will freefall. Then you add on top of that this rarely discussed epidemic of chronic illness and autoimmune conditions, which is on the rise for young people and the world in general, and it becomes no wonder that so many of us are disillusioned and hopeless and living only for pleasure with no expectations for the future. Even our birth rate and population replacement rate has been decreasing as people begin to give up on having children and family as a possibility, feeling priced out of even that most fundamental opportunity that we've always had before. Now, looking at all of this, understanding a lot of these harsh truths about the world today, I think a lot of young people end up feeling hopeless. I think that's only natural. We look around and don't really see any significant voices speaking on our behalf. In the news and throughout society, we hear how we're spoiled and hard to work with, how we don't have a go-getter attitude, how things are the same as they've always been, and we just aren't trying as hard as past generations did. We feel this fundamental disconnect between ourselves and the older people in our lives who didn't grow up in our world and don't seem to understand it the way we do. We put up with the humiliation of being looked down upon and treated like losers by people who afforded their homes on a mailman's salary. And the whole time we're sold on this dream of getting rich and famous, as we see all these other people our age escaping the rat race or the Matrix, selling a course and riding a jet ski in the Bahamas. You end up feeling like your only option is to give up entirely, or somehow be that 1 in a million kid who makes it big on crypto, or streaming, or whatever. But genuinely, not everyone can be successful like that. And the way it's presented by the online ecosystem and certain influencers is a dangerous expectation to put in the mind of a young person, because comparison is the theft of joy. And already being unsatisfied with their circumstances is only exacerbated by seeing the highest quality of living and financial freedom just normalized to us endlessly, making the monotony of our lives all the more painful. A lot of us somehow feel like we're falling behind in life, or we're being outcompeted and everyone else is ahead, but that isn't true either. The internet and social media just heightens the sense of competition and makes us feel inadequate as our expectations are artificially inflated and aggrandized like that. The truth is that you're probably doing fine, whatever position you're in. The truth is that for Gen Z as a whole, it's far more common than you might imagine to be struggling, or living with your parents, because that's kind of the state of the economy in the world right now. Okay, so after all of that, I'm sure some of you are beginning to see and understand my point. Although I couldn't express it in the most straightforward, succinct way, I think I made it pretty clear why Gen Z is giving up, what causes and contributors there are to this trend, and how it's affecting us on an emotional level. What I haven't said yet is that I'm actually incredibly optimistic about our future. I think that Gen Z as a generation has a really unique potential. You see, because we grew up alongside the internet, although we're very divided and polarized at the moment, in a cultural sense, we're the most globally connected, homogenous generation there's ever been. Due to the internet and the parasocial bubble we've all grown accustomed to, many of us have friends from all around the world. We've seen more of other cultures and other countries and varied perspectives, and so in a pretty general sense, we have a broader perspective on the world than our parents and grandparents grew up with. As of now, because we're the youngest class of adults and there isn't any unity or organizational rally around, we can do very little with this power. But I do believe that given the right direction and the right leaders and voices, we may someday have the potential to do something transformative on this planet that no other generation had the will or desire to undertake. If there is to be a revolution in the way the world and society operates, a revolution in our governments, and a real examination of corruption and decay of our politics and our culture, it will be done by this generation. We are a final hope for things to turn around. Maybe there isn't a guarantee, but there's a possibility. Every voice matters because when we all speak together, that's when we're truly loud and capable of making change. Thanks, guys.